What's the most troubling aspect of this Nationals team to you? It has to be the bullpen, right?
Yeah,
Who do you blame that on?
I mean, how do you look at it? And that was my point, and Nick had also made the same point, too, and that was the beginning of our show. It was like, look, yes, there's no doubt they miss Bryce Harper. They miss his presence. They miss how teams can attack and pitch around, and just, I guess, that feeling that you're one swing away from taking a lead or tying a game that Bryce Harper provides. But the bullpen, which, guys, I just looked up, right, and we all know the numbers, is 7.02 in ERA through 50 games. I mean, that's absurd. Like, whatever you thought of Mike Rizzo's plan, whatever you thought of the Nationals' plan over the offseason of Rosenthal and Barraclough, and you say, all right, well, maybe these guys aren't world beaters and that they're not going to, keep the Nationals bullpen under a 3, right? None of us, including myself, so I have to say this for me, I never thought it could be anywhere close to being this bad. So that's the number one problem. But then when you combine that with terrible defense, which has been a consistent problem, and then you look at the first 3 innings, Jason, I know you said you didn't watch the game or the early portion of the game yesterday. It would have drove you crazy. I mean, I was pulling my hair out because they're sitting there with the stick on their shoulders, not swinging, 5 called strikes in a row, runners on first and third in every inning with 1 out or less, and they couldn't score a run.
I saw at one point, I just looked at my phone, looked up the update, and they had 10 hits.
Oh,
I think 10 hits through maybe like 5 innings and had 1 run. I was like, how are they not scoring?
They left so many guys on base.
I mean, it was just double play at Palooza.
Well,
it was ridiculous.
Did FP drop this nugget during the game? Did they lead the league in called third strikes or something like that? They're very
that
close.
may be the case.
Yeah.
That may be
Well,
the
this is the question I threw out.
Here's the thing. They strike out a lot. We know that.
Yeah,
whether it's called strikes or not, and certainly yesterday it was. They strike out too much.
They're third in the league in strikeouts. Or they got to the boys. Why is still on the big league roster right now?
Well,
they don't have better options.
There's got to be somebody else who's got a better than a 7.17 ERA out there.
Because they're infatuated with the stuff.
Okay, yeah. I'm not saying cut him. Send him down. Let him get right in the head.
So I would say this up until about, 3 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, sometime on that West Coast trip, the guy, Barraclough, that they had settled on him as being kind of that setup guy, that bridge to Doolittle, right? And then he imploded, gave up that late grand slam against the Dodgers, gave up a couple of home runs in the next couple of games, one against the Mets and one against the Cubs, I believe, last Friday night in that shellacking. And so now you're constantly searching for a guy, the guy, any guy with a pulse that can get you 3, 4 big outs in the 7th and 8th innings. So they were trying Suero just because of natural stuff. I know, talking to Grant Paulson last week at one of these games, I think it was the Nats-Mets afternoon game, he was like, why don't they go to Suero? Why don't they go to Suero? And I'm like, I don't think Davey trusts anybody, nobody. And how could he, especially at this point? There's nobody you can hang your hat on. Nobody. And even Doolittle, had a bad outing the other night and struggled late last week in that Thursday afternoon game against the Mets. So I don't know how much you can count on him every night now.
Yeah. I mean, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. That's the kind of stretch that they're in
pretty
right
much. Now. I mean, they need complete games from their starters, quite honestly,
right.
Which is not going to happen.
But you bring up a good point. It's more than just the bullpen, which is on track to be historically bad, like literally the worst bullpen of all time, which you couldn't foresee.
Yeah.
But they did say, and I took it as a given, that when they got rid of Bryce, okay, sure, they were going to miss some of that production, but they were going to certainly be better defensively, and that hasn't been the case at all. I mean, Soto's been kind of a mess out there. Robles has had his moments where he's been a mess. I mean, all those guys have actually had their moments, like pros, like guys that have been around, which is what's really frustrating.
Yeah, and going back to that rant, Yan Gomes came here again with this tremendous reputation. I mean, we all knew he could hit. If he could stay healthy, that was the question. Not how many pass balls was he going to be allowed. I think he's up to 8 or 9 at this point.
And he hadn't even played that many games.
No,
exactly.
Because Suzuki, you couldn't keep him out of the lineup because of his stick. And now when you look at how Gomes has caught the position over the last week, I mean, I was at last Saturday night's game against the Cubs, the last game they won. He had 2 pass balls in 3 batters. And then another one yesterday that was ultimately changed to a wild pitch, plus a throw that sailed about 15 feet wide of second base that Dozier didn't back up. And that's another guy. Dozier came here as a gold glove second baseman reputation, and at times he's turned a couple of impressive double plays, guys. But he's also butchered a couple of balls and it's just one thing after another. And I know they're still injured. I got it that Zimmerman and Adams just came back and they were having Kendrick at first and all these. I understand that. But how many more excuses can you? I'm running out of excuses. I'm running out of time to defend Davey and say it's not his fault. I mean, at some point, it's Memorial Day on Monday. If you lose 3 out of 4 to a Marlins team that's won 6 in a row and that has an ERA over 2 in the last week, under 2 in the last week, if you lose 3 out of 4, you have to make a move. You have to make a move.
50 games in, and they're 12 games below 500. As I said earlier, if you ranked all the teams and you don't just look at divisions and leagues, they're 28th out of 30.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Yeah, the Royals and the Orioles are worse, and the Marlins are tied with them in the loss. What do you call that? The loss standings or the loss column.
I agree with. I've tried to defend Dave, even though he's uninspiring to me, just because I think it's so easy to blame the manager.
Absolutely.
But
I'm right with you, EB.
But they're so bad that it's impossible to defend. I mean, go ahead, fire whoever you want. Who cares? No matter who you bring in, you bring in God. He's still gonna have at this point Grace, Sip, Suero, Barry. He's still going to have the same dummies he's going to have to turn to in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, and they're still going to be in the exact same pickle.
Yeah. You guys talk to Rizzo every Wednesday, and you do a great job. I listen to it religiously, and he tries to politic everything. And the one thing that he said on Wednesday that struck me.
He owns up to a few things, I think.
Right. Wednesday it struck me, and it was something that I talked about last weekend, which was allocation of resources, right? Nobody would argue that it's not a good idea to build 1 through 3 in your starting rotation the way they did with Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin. The problem is that he doesn't have the resources to then really go invest in a big-time setup guy, a 7th, 8th inning guy, because they allocate so much of their resources. And again, I understand why in the top 3 in their starting rotation, it leaves them bare at 4 and 5, and then it leaves them bare at 7 and 8, and then they have to trade some of these young arms in years past, the Felipe Riveros and the Blake Trinans, because A, they can't be patient with their development, and B, because they need veteran relievers who can get outs in key spots because they don't spend any money in free agency on the damn bullpen.